Welcome back, everybody, to another video where I dive into building sales funnels with AI technology. If you saw my last video, you saw I used AI to create a really nice hero section on a funnel hub, and I ran into some grief and issues that I had with using AI to create really great images for funnels. And at the time that I did that, I did also mention that there were some updates to Photoshop. And in fact, when I recorded that video, Photoshop that day released a bunch of beta features for AI, of course, right? So what I've done is I've gone back to revisit the funnel that I built in the last video to use some of these new AI features to make basically all of my complaints non-existent. So there's some really cool things we can do with some new features in Photoshop that are going to make this a game changer. I'm going to show you a few different really cool things that you can do with these features. But while I have you here, let me remind you to subscribe to the channel. I am on my road to 1,000 subscribers. I want you to be a part of that. If you're watching this video, if you get any value out of this, please hit the subscribe button. I am releasing tons of great videos on this channel every single week, from sales funnels to click funnels to just online marketing in general. You do not want to miss any of it. So smash the subscribe button, turn on the notification bell, and you will get all of my videos as soon as they are released. But with that, let's dive in and see how we can fix last week's funnel using these new AI tools in Photoshop. So what I want to do is I want to take the funnel that we built in the last video and show you how it could have made this a little bit easier for me. So if you recall, I designed this page, right? And like most of it was this above the fold section, getting them to opt in. I was messing around with this background image a lot. I had to make it really big because it wasn't a wide enough image. So I got this image from Midjourney. Here it is when I actually made it. Remember, I said design a landing page for a photographer using white backgrounds, light blues, and purples. Gave me a bunch of like lavender examples. I chose this one, and I asked it for some variations, and then this was the image we ended up using. So if I use this image again, right, let's just save it right on my desktop. Oh, we'll leave the last one there. We'll save it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to open it with Photoshop. Now, you might be using Photoshop right now and not even realize that you have access to these AI features, because you actually have to opt in for the beta. And then when you load Photoshop, you actually have to use the beta version. So first, let me show you where you do that. All you do is go into your Creative Cloud. Right, so here's Creative Cloud. And when you're in here, all you do is you go down to beta apps, and there'll be Photoshop beta. Mine's already downloaded, but you'll need to download that. And then when you open Photoshop, just make sure whenever you open it, it has this white logo. So a lot of times I'll like open an image with Photoshop. I'll still see my other version of just regular Photoshop without the beta features. And I'll see this version. I'll have to actually go and search for this version with the beta features. What I've been doing is I've just been coming into Creative Cloud and opening this. And then when I open it from here, it will actually just, any other things I load up with it afterwards will automatically come into this beta version for me. So one of the things I noticed last time when we first went into Photoshop was when I clicked around, right? Like if I had made a selection somewhere, this toolbar was popping up. Now, it didn't say generative fill here. That's going to be one of the main features we look at here today. It just had this toolbar, and it had some options. Like when I have an image already loaded up, it already had select subject there. It already had remove background there. I hadn't been using those. So this is a new toolbar. It's called the Contextual toolbar. And without the beta features, this will actually start showing up with just the latest update. This is already out of beta. It just doesn't have this generative fill option on here. So this toolbar is really awesome. It's just taking a look at what you currently have open, taking a look at what you've done last. So like if you selected something on the image, and it's just showing you the most likely things that you are to do next. So I think this is great, especially for people that are a little bit intimidated by Photoshop, because a lot of times you end up going into all these menus and there's so many different things to choose from. I've been using Photoshop since I was like 12 years old, and I can tell you myself, I don't use 99% of the stuff that's in here almost ever. If I ever do need to use it, I just jump on YouTube and search, how did I do that thing again that I did in like 2002 that I need to do now? Well, it's all documented somewhere on the internet, right? But what's really cool about this contextual toolbar is, a lot of the common things that I use, like selecting subject, I come in here, I'd select subject, then I would modify, smooth it out, then I would select inverse. I have to go through all these menus to do things that I just want to do really quickly. And for a lot of those things, there are keyboard shortcuts, but if you're like me, you can never remember a keyboard shortcut. This saves us from having to remember keyboard shortcuts. So you'll see when I add an image in here a moment, it's going to say select subject, remove background. As soon as I do something, it's like, it gives me the options of like the next most common things that someone might do. And to me, for someone who's brand new to using this, that probably is just like removing backgrounds, creating YouTube thumbnails, right? Creating mock-up images for offers. Like, you don't need to know all these other menus and things. So this is really, really awesome. You're going to see how this helps us out. Okay, so I have an image open here already. I just created a new image and I made the size 1920 by 1080. That's just like your ideal background image size, right? And we saved that image from Midjourney. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open that image that we saved from Midjourney. Okay, so here's that image. And what I did last time was basically I just, sorry, let's zoom out a little bit. You'll see I never use keyboard shortcuts. You can use Control plus and Control minus. But what I did was I just cropped out basically that main image. I wanted to use it as what's called my hero shot for above the fold. And so we can just select that, hit Control C, or just go edit, copy. And then I'm going to paste it into here. So this was the issue I ran into. This image is a little too narrow when I went to use it as my background. Like I had to like zoom in like crazy. And it cut off a lot of the side pieces. So now what we can do with these AI features is one, it's like what I was doing actually at first was I was just making it large enough to go top to bottom. We could use this generative fill feature to fill in the sides. Or I could use this generative fill feature to fill in the top, bottom, and the sides. So I'll show you how this works. It's super easy. It's so simple, right? And you can see those options now, right? Now that I have an image on here, it's like select subject. I just click on it. It's going to select my subject. I can delete the background out. I can modify it with my quick select. So a lot of times if you're making like YouTube thumbnails, you'll spend a lot of time doing this. We're not going to use that right now, though. Okay. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to do the sides for right now. If we make a selection on our page and you want to grab a little bit of the image with it, right? So if I make a selection here, I can click here on generative fill, and it's going to use AI to fill this in. You can also use it to add images onto your page, which I'll show you in a moment. But this is what I'm using it the most for right now, is just leaving the prompt here blank and clicking generate. And this little toolbar that kind of follows you around, you can also pin it into certain positions if it annoys you that it keeps moving around. I like to put it way up here and just pin it right there. Okay, so if I don't put any prompt in this little space here and click on generate, it just fills in the gap. And there is another feature called content aware fill. And I actually could have used that in my last video to do something like this. I just find that it often gives me weird results. Sometimes it's really good, but it only takes into consideration like what part of the image you have selected when you hit that fill. With this feature, it's taking the whole image into consideration. It actually shoots your whole image into the cloud. So a lot of the tutorials will really emphasize the fact that you have to be connected to the internet to use this feature. So I have to have at least connected to Wi-Fi or hardwired into the internet for this to even work. Instead of just doing it once, it actually gives you 3 different options. So to me, any 3 of these would actually work fine. I actually like number 1, so I can leave it like that. But then we have the rest here, right? So I can make another selection. I'm going to say, okay, up here, generate fill. don't prompt anything in here. Boom. Isn't that cool? Like, look how, like, it gives me 3 options, but any 3 of these would actually work great. I like the first one here, right? And so then I have this little chunk here. So I like to just do it in squares. Seems to work well for me. Just keep in mind, like, if you overlap something, it's going to overlap that. So that's why I wouldn't do the whole image. It would actually fill in over top of my subject here. Pretty cool, right? And I have 3 options I can choose from. Ooh, actually, that's number 3 there. Okay. And then I have this little section down here. Generative fill, generate. How cool is that? Like, it literally added in the rest of her body for me. Oh, that one's cool too. I like that. A little blurry though at the bottom. I'm gonna stick with this one, I think. Okay, actually, let's try with this. I think this will actually work really good. And if you really look closely, like there's a little bit of a line there. You can blur that in with your blur tool if you want to, but isn't that cool? We went from this chunk of the image to this with all the stuff around it. So I'm actually going to try to use this as my background image on the funnel we created before. And then I'm going to show you some other really cool things we can do with these AI features. Okay. So let's just call this new background hero section. Okay. So we'll save that. And I'm going to jump in to my funnel. And I had it in the section setting. So you can always go into a row, go to your breadcrumbs if you don't have a lot of padding in your section. Say like no top or bottom padding. So it's hard to get to those settings sometimes, right? And then down here is where I had the image set. So I'm going to upload this new image. All right, here it is right here. And see how much that changes things. And now what I can actually do, it'll actually make this work better across different resolutions, is instead of setting it to full 100% width, I can set it to full center and stick it to the top. Right? I wouldn't want to do it on like the bottom of the middle, stick it to the top. And so now, depending on their resolution, when they zoom in and out, they might just get more or less of the sides. Before, when I had it set to 100% width, if I went really, really skinny, it would actually eventually start to cut off the bottom of that image. But because I was able to make it larger, create at this larger resolution, we get way less of that now. So I think that is a huge improvement to the image that I was using before that was just a little too narrow. I did like how it went over her head a little bit though. So what if I was really using this, what I would probably do is just not do the generative fill on top of her head and just do it on the side. So I'd make the image larger in that 1920 by 1080 image and then just fill in the side gaps. So it'd be a little bit more zoomed in than this, but it would still, again, it would work on pretty much any resolution. So for me, that is a massive, massive upgrade to my hero section here. It just, again, helps ensure that this is going to look great on any resolution. You'll see, even if I go to the mobile resolution, which I haven't completely optimized yet, it's still going to look great because I don't have it set to 100% width. When I have that section background set to 100% width, when we go to the mobile version, if it will even let me here, right, it can end up, actually, it's not even doing it right now because, it's going to look weird, but you can see it on width and height. It makes it look really weird. So potentially, I think if we view the live version of this, it might actually be like 100% of the width on mobile, which wouldn't look great. But on this one with full center, it's going to look like this no matter what. So you're going to get a good view no matter what size you view it on. Okay. So that is one of the big things. Now, one of my biggest complaints about generating these images with AI is that we don't get the layered version of the images. And what we can do now is we can actually remove things super easily. So this image isn't the best example, There's a couple of spots where I could do it, but what really annoys me is on images like this template I made, for example. It gives me the image with all this like mumbo jumbo text on it. So let's save this image and let's open it up in Photoshop. And so you see what I mean, right? Like if I wanted to like create the top section in this green color, for example, right? If I wanted to make that background asset, I'd have to go and do it myself. And it has sort of like this gradient to it. So it makes it a little frustrating to go and set that up, right? And then if I wanted this lady as a separate layer, it becomes a bit of work. So what I really love is, well, first off, we can get rid of all the mumbo jumbo super easy. We just hover over this, click on generative fill on our toolbar, leave it blank, and it's going to fill it in, and it's going to take that gradient color behind it into consideration. So like if I wanted to use just my paintbrush to eliminate that, doesn't work when there's a gradient color behind it. I end up with like a big block, but look, it fills that in like perfectly. I can click on any one of these. Oh, that one, it didn't take all of it out. So I probably wouldn't use that one. Right, but they all look great. The other thing you can do is in your toolbar here is if it gives you something bad, you can actually mark it. If it gives you something inappropriate, you can flag it. It is in beta, so they're looking to get feedback from us. So, I like this one. I'm going to give it the check mark, and it just helps them know, like, okay, in this case, in this situation, it worked, and it helps make the AI better as time goes on. Okay. So that's one thing I really love. I've just been using the square selection tool here. You can use your lasso tool. You can do any shape or size that you want. Hit generative fill, leave it blank, and it will take that off here for you. So I actually love this because a lot of times what I end up doing is trying to make these background colors and custom transitions from one section to another. It becomes a ton of work. So now what you can actually do, sorry, I'll do that. What I could actually do here is I'm going to get her out of here. And I would spend tons of time in Illustrator kind of making these custom shapes that I could use for the background images. Now I can just, it's kind of like having that layer, right? Now, the other way you can use this generative fill feature is to add things onto the page. So say I want to add a cat right here. If I use generative fill, instead of leaving it blank, I can put in prompts here to tell it what I want it to do. So I want to add a picture of a cat, hit generate, and it will give me 3 AI generated images of a cat. So with a plain background like this, it's probably not going to look too great, but I've seen some really great examples with real photos of like people underwater and stuff where it does a really good job editing it. Just make sure when you do that, you're on a layer that's at the top here. I have to move this layer way up. So there's the cat that it gave me. So actually it's giving me 3 different cartoon cats, and the cartoon actually kind of goes with the style of my page right now, right? And I can move this around, right? So it will incorporate the background color into it as well. So you may need to play around with that a little bit. I've seen a lot of people using it where they actually like try to draw like an outline of what it is that they want added. So we saw one, it was underwater and they wanted to add fishes. So they would actually come in and like draw little fish and say generate fill, add a tropical fish. And because it takes the whole image into consideration, they had like different reflections and stuff. It was able to change that for them pretty much automatically. My layers keep going to the bottom, which is really annoying. Put that at the top. See, it actually looks like a real fish, right? If that was just a little thing you're adding into the background of an image, that would work really good. Okay, so the other thing that you can do is you can take images and you can kind of not just like have it auto generate like a background behind it. You can have it do it for you kind of automatically. So say, let's go back here. I'm just hitting Control Z to undo things. Say I have this cat here, and actually what I'll do is I'll merge all these layers. So it's just one layer. Raster size them first and then merge. Okay. So if I click on here, you'll see my contextual toolbar says I can select subject. If I click on select subject, hopefully it will select my little cat. And it did. It selected the cat, right? And then what you can do is right here is you can click on select inverse. So now I'm selecting the inverse. So all I have selected is the main subject. And let's say I want to add a whole different scenario behind this cat. All I do is click on generative fill, and I can describe what I want to see behind this. So add a background to put this cat in the middle of a field in Ireland, and we'll see what it gives us. Okay, so obviously not the best, right? But does give you different options. And my description, maybe including the cat description, didn't work for this. Right, but I can click in here and I can change it, right? So I can add a background of a field in Ireland. We can hit regenerate and it'll redo all three selections. So you kind of have to play around with it. Be careful with what you describe. Some, like in a lot of AI image generating tools, you have to be super descriptive, but this is actually taking your current image into consideration as well, the way that this works. So sometimes maybe not as descriptive, but this is the part where I'm getting some weird results from time to time. Where it's just like, okay, this doesn't really work for what I'm trying to do. But you'll see it gives you all the variations down here as well. So sometimes you have to play around with that to get something that works for you. But I've seen, especially for image, like photographer editors, that like, you know, sometimes they need to like just change a little section of the background, or just change a little corner, little piece, add a little thing in to their images. This is working really, really well for them. So this is huge for funnel building, if not just for being able to easily extend the sizes of your images, but also to kind of on your own layer out your images as well. So hope this has been helpful. I think this is amazing. If you aren't using Photoshop, don't be scared. There's tons of great tutorials. If you can select a subject, if you can remove a background, if you can use these generative fill tools, this is going to be a game changer for you as you design funnels. And trust me, there's tons of people with really bad designs in their funnels. If you can learn the basics of Photoshop, this is where everything is headed. So hope this is helpful, and I will see y'all in the next video. Bye, everybody.